sometimes I know for me, I get caught up in the languaging or the words sometimes. And so this week we're working a lot with the word holiness, HOLINESS. And I'm going to go a little deeper in that one today in lesson 38. But just as a review, last week what we looked at these lessons. That was, I am not the victim of the world I see. I have invented the world I see was Tuesday. Wednesday we did there is another way of looking at the world. So, and then Thursday, we took a look at this lesson, which was, I could see peace instead of this. And then Friday, we ended that my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. So that was the first use of that word or that term. And then Monday, we talked about my holiness envelops everything I see. Yesterday's lesson was this one, and that was that my holiness blesses the world. My holiness blesses the world. And I don't know if any of you had that chance to practice those little exercises in between where you, again, if you're interacting with someone where maybe in your mind you just said, you know, my holiness blesses this person. And if you had a chance to do that through the day yesterday, I did, and it was intentional as part of the lesson that I did that, and it was cool because it didn't change them, it changed me with them though. And I don't know how else to say that. And yet that's the only person I can change, isn't it? Is that. So I would say, you know, my holiness blesses whoever that person was that I was interacting with. Did anyone else have anything that happened as you practiced this exercise yesterday, whether it was the 5-minute practice sessions or the small ones?
I think it just makes you feel more compassionate towards people.
That's a piece of it, isn't it? Yeah. Makes you feel more compassionate. So when you say compassionate, Barb, what does that show up like for you?
It just kind of helps me see people in a different light, I guess.
Maybe a little more patience.
Yes.
With them. Maybe a little more.
Yeah.
Tolerance, maybe too. Yeah. I agree. You know, in the back of my mind, I always have to chuckle a little bit because in the deep South, they have this saying, bless your heart, or bless your heart, or bless your heart. I think that's a version of this. No, and that's to say, you know, I don't know. I always chuckle because these are somewhat related in the way I think of them. And really what it is, though, it's about more tolerance or compassion, I should say, or acceptance, or even giving them more grace. And I think right now, you know, in the last 5 months with COVID-19 and everything that's so uncertain, that idea of giving people more grace is as important today as it was 5 months ago. In fact, it's probably more so. And I'll tell you from a personal perspective, it's probably more challenging now than it was then because we've been at it for so long, right? Where it should be becoming easier. Sometimes it's a little tougher. So that really was yesterday's lesson. Now, today's lesson is a play off of that as well. And today's lesson is this. Whoops, let me get to 38. Here we go. There is nothing my holiness cannot do. Now, what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to read the explanation first, and then we're going to give you the lesson, because I think that's going to make it a little easier to get your head wrapped around, because I know I struggled with this. So there's nothing my holiness cannot do. It says, argue for your limitations, and you get to keep them. Argue for your limitations, and you get to keep them. I love that statement. I think that's so profound. It goes on to say, because you are perfect, whole, and complete, this holiness reverses all laws of the world. You are beyond any restrictions of time and space. Your holiness is unlimited because your holiness is your divine birthright. Your mind is an extension of the mind of God, your creator. God being unlimited can only extend that same unlimitedness, for like begets like. So what are these laws of this world that your holiness reverses? Well, the laws of the world are beliefs in the fear-based thought system which dominates the mass collective consciousness of the world that you perceive. That's a huge sentence. And yet it is very profound. So I'll say that again. I'm going to say it a little slower, though. It says the laws of the world are the beliefs in the fear-based thought system which dominates the mass collective consciousness of the world that you perceive. The laws of the world are based on the mistaken belief in separation, lack, limitation, and fear. So your world is controlled by how you define yourself. Your world is defined by how you define yourself. is controlled by how you define yourself. So you have been indoctrinated and have accepted the worldview that you are the body and the body is you. Your ego argues for your limitations. Your ego argues for your limitations. It claims that you are a limited ego body in competition with other ego bodies for the limited resources that you both need to survive. So as such, it is rooted in a fear-based thought system of lack. So fear dictates the rules of the world. Fear is an acronym. It could be false evidence appearing real. Your fear-based thought system is your private world of individuated perceptions that become your provisional reality. So we've been conditioned that way from the very beginning of our consciousness as in this body, if you will. So it goes on to say your holiness, however, changes your erroneous belief about yourself. Remember, your holiness is that you're perfect, whole, and complete. You're perfect, whole, and complete. So since your world is a world of perception and not reality, the laws of perception currently govern your egoic world. The law of perception states that what you believe, you will perceive. Thoughts raised to the level of beliefs become the experiences that you call into your awareness. What you focus on expands, like attracts like. There's all kinds of statements around that one. So your beliefs become your provisional reality. Your provisional reality will change when you are willing to change those beliefs about who you really are. So you're holy. You are holy because your mind is part of God's mind. You are not the victim of the world you see because you have invented the world you perceive. When you realize that you are unlimited in spirit and not some game token that you call the body, you will cease arguing for your limitations. When those beliefs change, those same limitations must disappear. Your beliefs are the cause, and its effect is the world you perceive. So it's all about our perception. So the final paragraph of this part says this. It says, there is nothing that your holiness cannot do, because by dropping your false beliefs about who you really are, you reclaim the truth of your divine birthright. All problems, difficulties, suffering, no matter what their apparent form is, are the same because they all arise from your erroneous beliefs about who you are. Accept your holiness and realize that your fantasies cannot change the truth. You and all you perceive remain as God created you, perfect, whole, and complete. Perfect, whole, and complete. I think that was my last statement on this last slide. I guess I did put that up there. I thought I did. So let me say that again. You and all you perceive remain as God created you, perfect, whole, and complete. So that's kind of the explanation of this lesson of there's nothing my holiness cannot do. So your holiness reverses all the laws of the world. Your holiness is beyond every restriction of time, space, and limits of any kind. Your holiness is totally unlimited in its power because your holiness establishes you as a child of God at one with mind of the Son's creator, which is God. So through your holiness, the power of God is made manifest. Through your holiness, the power of God is made available. And there is nothing the power of God cannot do. Your holiness then can remove all pain, can end all sorrow, and can solve all problems. You can do so in connection with yourself and with anyone else. Your holiness is equal in its power to help anyone because it's equal in its power to save anyone. So if you are holy, so is everything God created. You are holy because all things God created are holy. So that's the argument for how we can make that statement. So and all things God created are holy because you are. In today's exercises, we're going to apply the power of your holiness to all problems, difficulties, or suffering in any form that you happen to think of through the course of this next day in yourself or in someone else. We will make no distinction between problems because there are no distinctions between problems. Problems are problems. Your holiness can solve all problems. So the exercise today is going to be done. We're going to ask you to do 4 longer sessions. I'm going to put this up too. So again, there is nothing my holiness cannot do. So 4 longer practice sessions, preferably of at least 5 minutes each. Repeat the idea for today that there is nothing my holiness cannot do. There is nothing my holiness cannot do. And then close your eyes and then search your mind for any sense of loss or unhappiness of any kind that you see. So you're just kind of going in to think about something that might be causing a sense of loss or unhappiness for you. To try to make a little distinction as possible between the situation that is difficult for you and maybe one that's difficult for someone else. They're the same in this exercise. Identify the situation specifically and also name the person concerned if it's about somebody else. And then I'm going to show you the form to use this exercise in. So if I close my eyes, I say to myself, there's nothing my holiness cannot do. There's nothing my holiness cannot do. And then just let your mind search for what might be causing you some concern or cause or some potential upset. And whether that's in you, something going on, or somebody else, it doesn't matter. Just search for it. And then once you've discovered that, here's what we're going to ask that you do. This format is, it goes like this. So there's nothing my holiness cannot do. And the format is, in this situation involving blank, so whatever that is, let's say in this situation involving the deal at 123 South Main Street, in which I see myself, because it's causing me concern, because there's inspection issues or whatever, there's nothing that my holiness cannot do. So that's it. That's it. And so just let your mind wander and pull those things up and then just manage it with that statement. Or if it's about somebody else, where you've got that cause of concern that comes up, you could say it this way: in this situation involving John, in which I blank see himself. So let's see. No, this situation involving 123 South Main Street, in which John sees himself, there is nothing that my holiness cannot do. Now, this is a little counterintuitive because it's about somebody else, yet we're talking about you being perfect, whole, and complete in that with him or her. So I know it's maybe a little confusing, but I'm going to leave that slide up because when you get the context written down, I think it's important. So from time to time, you may want to vary the procedure and add some relevant thoughts of your own. For example, you might like to include relevant thoughts such as, there is nothing my holiness cannot do because the power of God lies in my holiness. Or introduce a variation of the appeal to you, but keep the exercise focused on the theme. So you could say there's nothing my holiness cannot do. And the purpose of today's exercise is to begin to instill in you a sense that you have dominion over all things because of what you are, which is a holy son or daughter of God. So that's what this exercise starts to create for us, is that peace. And so I'm going to put that last thought on that, because this is so powerful. It says, in the frequent shorter applications, apply the idea that there's nothing your holiness cannot do in its original form unless a specific problem or concern that you have arises or comes to mind. And in that event, use the more specific form that we just gave you. Here's the final statement. If there's nothing you write down or take a note about this week even, I think this is one. It says the purpose of today's exercise, there is nothing my holiness cannot do, is to begin to instill in me a sense that I have dominion over all things because of who I am, which is a son or daughter of God. That's the first glimpse of A Course in Miracles last third, if you will. And that's where it's creation versus the past, which is what we've been working on for 30 some days already. So that's it today. I threw a lot at you. There was a lot of really good content in this lesson 38, and it's a really powerful lesson. I'm going to take the screen share off. Just ask if anyone has any questions, thoughts, or comments. All right. Well, if there isn't, and Nancy, I love your setting today. How beautiful is that? You must be up at your lake. Is that where you're at today? That's awesome. What a cool setting that is. What a beautiful day you have for it, too. So enjoy. Enjoy, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Darren.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here.